Well, on that note, then, since my phone says 5 o'clock, let's go ahead and call this P&G meeting to order, because I promised my family this was going to be short. Don't make me a liar.
All right.
First thing on our agenda is just approval of our minutes from the last meeting. So my fellow directors, I would entertain a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Second.
Do we just do a roll call? Can we just say all in favor?
Aye.
All right, there we go. We're all good now. All right, so we can go into the policy review. I know there's a couple specific things we need to tackle from, Matt brought something up the other day, and we had an email from Director Eastham. I don't know if Dromi or Athena, if either of you had anything specific you wanted to tackle.
No, not anything specific. It's related to Director Eastham's request on how we tackle integrating that.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and do that first, because I think that'll be potentially the hardest thing to weave in here. I pulled his email out. I'm trying to remember if he had kind of suggestions. He had some suggestion of 600. And I was going to kind of look at that policy to see if that made sense. It's the, the education series, and he suggested the G1, which is our goals and objectives, which is, it's not a terrible idea. I mean, I think it I have to remind myself of what all the little letters are of our different forms. I mean, I think what makes the most sense to me is wherever we decide it goes, we just put it in total somewhere, right? And that's where it lives, and it gets updated on its own, just like there's some other kind of standalone policies that are embedded into this policy, right? That are just sort of attachments. I don't know, are they the R's, the references, or are they the G? I don't remember specifically how it goes, but.
Yeah, my thought, Sean, was on that goals and objectives part. You could just have an equity section, and we could just refer directly to the comprehensive diversity, equity, and inclusion plan. We could even talk about review of that plan and when it would be updated. But I think the direct review of that, then it doesn't necessarily have to have the whole body of the equity plan in there, but you have a direct piece where it's written in policy that it's how we are going to determine our goals and objectives in that area. So if you guys would be okay with that, I would take a stab with the team about just adding in a similar section in the goals and objectives, 600 point G1, putting in the equity and creating a few bullets under there that would work for that. I don't think it fits as well in 600, because I think 600 is kind of the umbrella component. And then I think we kind of get to some more specifics about things that are direct goals, and equity obviously stay a continual goal for us, but we could state it there and it could be written in policy that way. So that was my thought, but open to whatever suggestions or direction you guys have.
I'm perfectly willing to go with that. A reference to it, and as you said, perhaps a reference to how it gets updated or frequency it gets updated or whatever meat we want to put around that. I think that makes sense. I think it accomplishes the goal, right? It specifically puts into policy that we have that plan, and it is part of our, overarching goals is to meet that plan. So I think that's the reasoning behind having it in policy. So
Yeah, I like referencing to it instead of putting the entire policy there.
In this goals and objectives, and I wasn't in the meetings on that, but and these are the ends policies of the boards, right? Yeah, the social studies needs to be revised because we don't have achievement data, because we're not, ISAS doesn't capture that anymore. So because it doesn't have social studies. I think you just remove those bullet points, to be honest, on social studies.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was trying to look and see if any other ones fell in that same problem area, Brady, but you're right. Social studies, we should adjust that too. So
Science, you probably don't have yearly, what do you get for 8th and 10th grade in science? So that might need to be revised as well. Math and reading and writing should work still, but
The thing I was wondering about, and I think it fits fine in the 600 series, is you also have the 100 series with 101, the educational philosophy of the school district. And actually, as I was looking at that, it cross-references equal educational opportunity, 102, long-range needs assessment, but it just, as you move down, it does cross-reference goals and objectives of the education program. So those two do, intersect in a way that you could think about.
So Amy, we'd want to include it there in that one, or you think there's an intersection enough from what you remember about the 100? I could pull it up and look too.
Well, the only thing I was thinking about is, does 600, which speaks to education, when I think about it, I think it's goal 3 or goal 4 that speaks specifically to, diversifying the workforce and things. So I was thinking, does it more broadly fit in an area that could, I don't know, be seen as both sides of the house?
We'd be happy to go back and take a look at that one too before we present it to you guys. So we'll check that. And then I like how Amy said that, if they talk to each other, intersect in that way, then, it directly references our statement we'll have around equity there too. So.
Yeah, thanks, Amy, for bringing that up, because I do think, the heading there is the educational philosophy of the school district, and I think that does kind of fit in there.
Yeah, like Amy said, then you're considering kind of both sides of the house. It's not just the education program, right, too, that we should be approaching equity work in any facet or function of the school district. And so we can work it into that 100 component too. And then it'd be written in 2 different places, which would be a positive.
Yeah, I think the 102 section, if you break it down, it has on there our LGBTQ guideline. And some of the grievance and complaint stuff. So it kind of seems like maybe it does fit better there as an overarching thing, as opposed to just the 600s.
yeah, I think that's a smart move. I was just digging around in the DEI, getting ready for the social studies presentation, and there's a lot of it that would fit really nicely in the 100. I like the cross-referencing idea of Amy. I think that's really smart, but I think you should have it in both, because just in the 600 on education, it would be missing some of the other parts of it. So I think that's a smart move.
So, Matt, I will kind of let you take the stab at, what you wanted to say, because I think the idea is still the same, right? A reference to it and some bullet points to it, and then figure out where we want it to live.
Yeah, and then when we determine kind of a next step after this meeting, if that's one we need to kind of pull out and show a change to, since that was the only other member question we got, I think that would be warranted when we do a policy adoption with the larger board. So that would be easy enough to do. And then I think we're going to talk about the conduct one here too. And so that would be another one we could follow that same format when we go for policy approval.
Yeah. So do you want to go ahead and move into that one that Charlie asked, the 503 one?
Sure. I think the solution's similar here, that we just need to have some language around equitable practices or some of the work probably that Amy's been leading in that discipline protocols to pursue PBIS and rethinking discipline group, trying to work in probably just a paragraph around even some of our philosophy on that end. This is, a pretty strict policy about this happens, then this happens. But I think we'd want to also includes probably some of our thinking and our beliefs into some of that about how we approach student conduct and some of that. So I think a paragraph, wherever it might fit, a 2, 3, 4 sentence description about how we approach some of that work would also be helpful here. So As I kind of looked at that today, I thought that would probably be our best solution to incorporate something like that and then move it forward.
Can I just share a quick reminder? I think this was, are you talking about 503.1, Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe, maybe I didn't see it because I don't think I was on that email, but just a reminder, this is one of the ones that we updated in January based on the seclusion and restraint guidance that we have from the Department of Ed. And I specifically remember from IASB, this one says, this is an Iowa code, you can't tweak it too much. So it might be one that we have to go back and even share with the attorney. I don't know, I'll leave that to that. But
And
just
that's why I
wanted to
kind of said, Amy, I think if we just did more something around kind of beliefs to how we approach the work rather than actions necessarily in this one, because it is sensitive about some of these things are pretty scripted about what our response needs to be in that sense so that we're in compliance with the law. And so I think if people were reading this cold like Charlie did and asked the question, then I think we'd at least want them to know that we've done that work in some way. So the other thing we could do is if we don't think, like Amy said, when we work on this and bring it back, if it doesn't fit really well here, if there's another, student conduct policy or another piece where that might fit better to get that rooted in, I think that would be good. It kind of just, for me, it was kind of the same frame of thinking, along the lines about where do we have that belief kind of rooted in our policy about how we approach that work. And so whether it's this one or another one, I think we probably need to do that. I think we could get it in here, but maybe the lawyers will tell us just stay away from this one, like Amy said.
Maybe,
Yeah,
I'm wondering.
Yeah,
Of a
do an
very-
addendum or something.
Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
The addendum, I was just thinking that, I kind of really skimmed through it, right? And it's defining expulsion and probation and all these other words. The very last, sentence, it's the language that's in a lot of these, right? It's the responsibility of the superintendent and the principal to develop administrative regulations regarding this policy. That right there, I think, is the opening to what we do, right? Whatever those administrative regulations are. And we could just in that sentence say these would include things like restorative practices, what other things you want to put in there, right? So we have the whole policy and then say, and also, right, these are the things that we are going to put around that. I don't know if that works perfectly or not, but.
Yeah, we'll find a way to make it work. I think the key part just kind of goes back to what I was trying to say, that, they don't want us to, like, in some way, they're trying to predetermine outcomes for certain behaviors here, right? And so that's the part where we'll have to be careful that we're not saying there's going to be a different outcome if something like this happens, because that's what's rooted in the code or what we need to make sure we follow. But at the same time, when we adopted these, you remember me saying it doesn't necessarily follow the spirit about how we approach these things all the time. And so then where do we also try to incorporate, our values and beliefs around some of this work? I think that's the important part that we want to have written in our policy. And so again, that's why it may not be a perfect fit here, but we can work to get some additional guidance on that and have a suggestion. So.
It makes the assumption that, we've exhausted all of our choices, right? And something terrible has happened and somebody's getting punished for it, right? There's no mention in there of trying to, address it before things happen, right? Which is kind of what we're looking at. It just assumes that somebody has to be punished for something.
Yeah, because it speaks a lot about student assault of an employee, right? And that's back to the point Amy made about why it's here in the first place and where it came from. And so, yeah, the more I'm thinking about it, I wonder if it's going to be better fit in a different one. But either way, I think Charlie's point's still resonant, right? And so then it's still just where does it go? But
Yeah, I'd want to run this one just I'll channel my best chase on that. Like this, but just because it was such a hot topic at the state level and you have public hearings and you have legislative action and bureaucratic decisions made, administrative rules, I don't know. I get what we're
I don't know.
I don't know if you put it here. Yeah, sorry. Silly.
No, it's funny. I didn't think I thought I was on mute, but I don't know. I feel like it shouldn't be in here. I think that I think it's still evolving, right? And we're still working on it. And so I think that it should not be in here. Once we find a place to put it, which should be maybe in the student handbook or something else, then we can reference it. But I personally, I don't think it should be in here.
I mean, I think it's an important reminder as we, discuss the changes that we're doing with the board and adopting the policies, that some of them are rooted in code, right? And that's where they came from. There's reasons for it. And, we are going through the process of trying to make the points that, as Charlie mentioned, right, in the proper place, right? And the best place to do that. So I think that'll land well, that, we're still doing the work, but at the same time following the rules, right? Which has kind of been our message this year.
I think you guys are all right. It's about the fourth or fifth time I've read it today, and you've got me sufficiently convinced. We can find a different spot for it. I think that's easy enough to do. So the less tweaking we probably do to that one, the better. And we just kind of approved that one. So it's easy to fit into a different spot as far as that goes. So we'll work on a paragraph, or like I said, a few sentences that I think speaks to what Charlie's concern is, and probably I think I shouldn't just say his, it's a shared deal, right? That how we look at disproportionality and how we look at student conduct or discipline mechanisms, and where we can make sure that's written in our policy for our work. So we'll get that done.
All right. And then Matt, you wanted to talk about the dress code policy.
Yeah, that one we're actively working on to redo. And so that's just been part of our work this year. So I believe we just have the primer in there now, or it's not going to be reflective of what we would like to have next year. So that's one we're trying to work on, so that when you guys are ready to adopt policies, we can show the new dress code piece. This is some work that former equity directors in the district had started, and then it got lost in transition, and then got lost in COVID in the spring. And so we'd like to have that buttoned up in a new policy in place. This is the right time to do it. So as we approach the start of school in the fall, that's clearly communicated and the expectations are set. And obviously, I hope in our work, the way we're trying to look at it is that it's not discriminatory towards any gender or race either, as we look at that policy and trying to use some good models from other districts across the country about what we could do a little differently there.
So is that in these policies, or that's a separate thing in like a?
We need to pull 502.1 for now.
Yeah, it's 5021.
Okay. That's the one I was gonna look at here, but.
Thanks for remembering that. Because as you started talking about it, I got a glimpse of a couple of students coming before the board to complain about it. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that now.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's
That
what
was-
kind of started
okay.
some of the work, or we were involved in that work. And then, like I said, it just never got finished.
The kids say they get coded. That's what
Yeah,
they
exactly. Coded. Yeah.
I have a question. How is it that you guys are all like mentioning specific sections? Like, this is a lot. Like, how are you doing that? I'm just confused. Like, did I miss the memo, or I didn't memorize it well enough? Like, I'm just like, Amy's just like 5. I was like,
We've just had to read them 1,000 times as we've been redoing them. So you didn't miss
I
any.
only know the
Every time,
problematic
like,
ones.
every
If you
time
ask me
I have
something else, I don't know.
because I always have to go back. I'm like, okay, what is it? Okay.
The different series are tailored to specific things. So the 500 series are all for the students.
Yeah,
So it was easy for me to know that it was in student somewhere, and then
that I know.
click
But
on-
once she started going, I was like, wait, okay.
No, and
Nice
we just
thing
knew this
about
was
'em
a
is
time
the-
that we were already going to talk to you about tonight too. So we knew.
And that's part of the job requirement. She has to memorize all of it.
I guess I'll be fired soon.
There'll be a quiz in August. So
just memorize like 4 random ones scattered throughout it and just sprinkle it in a conversation, and we'll think you know it all.
I'll do that.
That's my secret anyway.
Thanks for sharing.
So I have much notes. Kim, did you capture everything we talked about. And I guess what I would suggest, because the plan, as I recall, was the first regular meeting in June, we would bring it before the board as a discussion item, right? But it would be nice if we were done like with these edits anyway. And then the second meeting in June, we'd be voting to adopt them. So between now and second Tuesday in June, if we could, I don't know that we need to meet again to discuss these, but if, Matt or whoever is taking a shot at kind of editing a few of these, maybe send out an email to this group, right? And just say, here's the changes, what do they look good? Just so that we're prepared to discuss them at the meeting.
Yeah, just so you guys have some advance notice of what they look like
Right.
ahead of the full board, that'd be good. Sean, can I bring up one other thing that I thought about with this? Sorry to keep belaboring this 5031. The other thing I think, just to put on your radars, I still am not coming off the position that you guys stated, and I still think that's the right way to be. I do think we could have a vocal group as far as it not being included in that 5031 that we should just be aware of, because I think they are in conflict a little bit, obviously, with where the state is at in their position on some of these things. And so if we do bring this idea up and we have kind of a different conversation around a specific policy where to include this, there could be some pressure on you as individual board members about why it's not included in this 5031 and that it was recently approved, that why aren't we including language there? I'm not sure if any of those direct conversations have happened to individual board members, but I could see that there's a active group of folks that would like to see obviously 5031 look different and that would advocate for a change of that. So I think we'll want to be set on why we're not changing 5031, but where we are including that so we can articulate that position. So that was the other thing I thought about today when we were looking at this one specifically, that we'll probably have some advocates for changing that at some point, even if, and so we'll just need to be solid on why it's there and why it reads the way it does.
I think we kind of talked that through the last time.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Any other things that we should address between now and the next regular board meeting? I think the rest of the policies should be pretty good. I appreciate the work that I know Brady and Chase did outside, and then Matt and Amy and Kim and all of the other folks that jumped in on the different sections. I know there was a lot of folks that helped craft some of the wording here, so I appreciate all that work. If we're good on actual policies, and I would ask if we were all still kind of on board with the idea of sort of September through May in those 9 months, going through the 100 through 900 series one at a time for future meetings. I think if we stay on top of it that way, we never get really behind and then have a 2.5 year policy review like we have had here. So if that works, I would suggest, I know it's a long way away, but I would just suggest that we tentatively put the third Tuesday of September as our next meeting. I think that's the 21st. And if we kind of get closer to September, that's just not going to work. We'll change it. But I think that as a plan, we'll target the second Tuesday of the month for P&G meetings. Does that seem reasonable to everyone?
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that maybe we should do the controversial ones first, given that I don't know if I'm going to run. Just kidding.
Tell you what, if you can come back and recite all of them, we'll do whatever you want.
No, yeah, but putting that date on is fine with me.
Anything else from anybody for the good of the cause tonight? You guys are doing good and not making me a liar when I said this was going to be short, so I appreciate that.
Well, there's something I'd like to talk about. I don't know. I've just had a really long day, so I'm so sorry. I just can't stop today.
I can't really throw anything at you. Everybody's on a computer. I'm just gonna break my computer at
I'm
this
sorry,
point.
I'm not making it impressive. I'm sure Sean would have cursed me out.
You need to go eat some candy. I think your blood sugar is dropping.
It is.
All right. But if we're all good, I guess I'd entertain a motion to adjourn at this point. Yeah, I'm staring at you two.
So if we don't do a motion, you just have to sit here and look.
We're all
at
just
us.
gonna sit here and stare at each other for
Matt
a
is
while.
like, quit playing. I've had a long day. No, I moved to adjourn.
Second.
That was a very quiet second. All right, all in favor? Aye. Yes, there we go. We are officially adjourned.
Bye, guys.
Bye. See you Tuesday.
Thank
too.
you.
No,
Good night.
some tomorrow. The
I will
people
see
that will be
somebody
there
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Bye.
Joey's like, what's tomorrow? The Silver Salute is tomorrow night. You don't have to go. Unless you want to.
Bye, Kim. Bye, Sean.
Bye.